Hello and welcome to the Federal. I am Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay, your host for the program Off the Beaten Track. Yet another round of elections and another occasion to discuss the Bharatiya Janata Party's dominance. But this time, the Congress won one state and the BJP lost power in the Municipal Council of Delhi. The MCD is not a very powerful body, but is a political trophy nonetheless. India is a land of serial elections. In the first quarter of 2023, Meghalaya, Nagaland, and Tripura will witness assembly elections. In April, it will be the turn of people in Karnataka to elect their next government. Around this time next year, elections are due in Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Mizoram, Rajasthan, and Telangana. In 2024, several states will vote for the Vidhan Sabhas along with the Lok Sabha. Another few months and the entire cycle will be repeated all over again. I have with me Professor Sandeep Shastri to discuss the recently concluded elections and the trend in 2023 and 24. He is a political scientist, one of the foremost election experts in the country, and also the Vice Chancellor of the Jagran Lake City University, which is located in Bhopal. He is also, more importantly, the national coordinator of the Lok Niti Network, a research program of the Center for the Study of Developing Societies. Welcome to this program, Professor Shastri, and thank you very much for being part of this.
Thank you.
Let me start by asking about the recently concluded elections, the verdict. Was it on expected lines? And for you, what were the major takeaways?
On the first question, Nilanjan, yes, for me, it was very much on expected lines and in consonance with what we at Lokniti had projected as part of our post-poll survey. I think this is a very complex jigsaw puzzle, as India is on any issue. The election jigsaw puzzle in India is extremely complex, and each piece is different, each piece is unique, and each piece has its own identity. And by each piece, I mean each of the 28 states of India. I think the context of each of these elections defines ultimately the direction of that election. And if you look at all the three we have just had, everybody talks about Gujarat as they should. Being the home state of the Prime Minister, there were huge political stakes involved in that state. There was the fear of anti-incumbency, having been in power for so many years.
Also, so the last year results in 2017.
Operation. So last year you had the political surgical operation of changing the entire Council of Ministers in a sense. Basically to I think, overcome any possibility of anti-incumbency, because now you are dealt with a totally new set of faces as representing the state government. But I would believe that Gujarat verdict was essentially a verdict on the central leadership of the party. The Gujarati voter felt he could not or she could not let down their prime minister and maybe their home minister.
Exactly.
So that verdict for me was a reflection of that. Secondly, Gujarat has moved from a bipolar to a tripolar contest with the entry of AAP. I must, of course, add a caveat that I don't think, even if it was a bipolar contest, the BJP would have lost. They would have still won. The only thing is they may not have won by the dramatic numbers that they finally did. And I think that boost in the numbers that they enjoyed was a byproduct of a tripolar contest that you saw in the state.
Okay.
And of course, the third factor I would put in is this interestingly was a state level campaign with national level icons.
Right.
Both for the AAP and for the BJP, and marginally even for the Congress. And if the Congress managed to do what they do, it was, I think, largely because of the support base that they had, the ground level support.
The existing network, you mean to say?
Yeah, network and also key pockets of support that they continue to have.
Yes, Gujarat, my first question is that is the tripolarity, is it going to be a permanent one, or is it going to be something like what happened in 1998 when the All India Rashtriya Janata Party of Shankar Singh Waghela also polled votes above 11%, and they also won 4 seats, so which is tantalizingly close to the Aam Aadmi Party's performance in 2022. So it came as a single one election party and then completely disappeared for political reasons. Of course, Aam Aadmi's presence is largely going to be dictated by political considerations. But we also hear all kinds of speculations about the Aam Aadmi Party's elected MLAs, considering whether they are going to continue to be part of the Aam Aadmi Party or also go and join the BJP because of the massive electorate. So actually, it's actually going to be a tremendous pressure for anyone in opposition to survive politically in Gujarat. So, do you see this as a permanent phenomenon, or would you like to wait for some time before pronouncing a judgment?
You have provided me my insurance policy in your last word. Yes, maybe it's a good idea to wait. But then, Nilanjan, if you look at the larger Indian picture,
Yes.
Whenever there has been a third force, the third force has always been in transition. And
Right.
ultimately, we have two forces emerging with a distant third force. I would say this is true of Karnataka. I would say this is true of Punjab. I would say this is true now emerging in Uttar Pradesh. So the presence of a third party would be seen in a transition period of settlement of political spaces. But ultimately, I think a third force or a fourth force invariably becomes a distant third or fourth force unless it is part of a bipolar alliance system in that particular state, like Bihar or otherwise.
Yes.
So I think the same situation is likely to pan out in Gujarat. Of course, I forgot to mention Telangana, where exactly same thing has happened, where the BJP has emerged as a second force, pushing the Congress to a distant third. And this has also happened where regional parties have fought against left parties and the Congress. Either the left or the Congress has been pushed to the distant third position. So I suspect something similarly will happen in Gujarat. But as you said, when it may not be, maybe you require a 2027 elections to decide that as to whether who will be the two main players in the politics of the state. But I think we are witnessing a phase of transition in Gujarat where there seems to be a competition now for the second spot. And that competition may take a few more years to fully play out in the state.
Right. You were talking about, whether I would like to shift to Himachal, where I would, and I would actually frame my question from the CSDS post-poll survey, which actually found that in Himachal Pradesh, the importance of the candidate was more important than in Gujarat. In Gujarat, actually, there was no need for a candidate. People might not have just known the name of the candidate, yet they would have gone and stamped on the BJP symbol. This wasn't so much the case in Himachal, despite the fact that the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, actually in a speech in Himachal Pradesh during campaign said that don't look at the campaign, look at my face. And, that's not the exact phrase that he used, but virtually it suggested that look at his face and then stamp it on that. Despite that, candidate seems more important. Despite that, in Himachal, issues of bread and butter or livelihood concerns were more important according to the survey. So what really explains the difference of the attitude of the voter on, or rather, that the process of decision making was different in the voter in Himachal and in Gujarat? And do you see this continuing differently state by state through 23 and 24?
Nilanjan, I would like to start by pointing out the fact that the vote difference between the BJP and Congress in Himachal was just 0.9%, less than 1%.
That's right.
And when the vote of course, on the first past the post system, the small vote difference can lead to a huge seat difference. But I think that is, this vote difference is something we have to underscore in Himachal.
Right.
And if you remember, the Prime Minister started his speech by speaking about this small vote difference in Himachal.
That's right.
And I think when you have such a small vote difference, even minor factors can actually tilt the vote in favor of one party or the other. And as you rightly said, in Himachal, of course, many would argue Himachal has a revolving door policy,
That's
where
right.
since the formation of the state, except once, they have always voted out the party which was in power. So some would argue it's the revolving door policy again expressing itself. But we must assert the point that the BJP made an aggressive attempt to try and reverse that policy. And many thought that that reversal would happen, and it nearly happened with just a less than 1% difference. So there must be some substantive issues. And our poll found, as you rightly said, two issues, and I'll add a third to that as we move forward. Issue number one, as you rightly said, in Himachal, our study finds that voters kept in mind both party and candidate. If you look at the Congress voters, more than half, I mean, an equal number said party is important for us, an equal number said candidate is important.
Candidate.
Whereas
Right.
among BJP supporters, the party was well ahead of candidate.
Right.
And this also brings me to another point we found in our study. 9 out of 10 voters in Himachal said the performance or the record of the candidate is important for us when we decide whom to vote for. And I would extrapolate that to say that local issues is something which the Congress capitalized on, whereas the BJP spoke more about national issues and national level developments and not so much the local developments. So this could have been one critical factor which tilted the balance. A second, which I think is equally important, if you look at the Congress vote, much higher among the poor, much lower among the rich. As you move from the poor to the rich, you see a fall in the Congress vote. On the other hand, you look at the BJP, when you move from the rich to the poor, you see a dip in the BJP vote. And in fact, when you come to the poor, the difference between the BJP and the Congress vote share was 11 percentage points. I mean, there was 11 percentage difference between the voting of the poor for the Congress and the BJP. Now, I think there is a story here, which is possibly, and also look at the element of disquiet about GST among the apple growers and all those issues.
Pension policy.
Sorry?
Pension policy.
And of course, the pension scheme. So I think the BJP managed to hold its ground in the middle class, did very well among the rich, but lost out very significantly among the poor. And this vote made a critical difference.
You know, as someone who looks at issues politically and not so much electorally like you do, is this not bad news for the BJP? And is this not a very soft signal from the voter in Himachal that start thinking about the poor? Don't only talk about national issues, about national pride, about, civilizational issues, not just about, improving the pride of India because of G20. Focus on issues which are related to the livelihood of the common people.
Beyond a shadow of doubt, Nilanjan, I think especially when these issues are disturbing people and making people uncomfortable, price rise, unemployment, and such local economic issues, when they tend to push other issues to the back burner, however much we try to bring those issues to the front, ultimately these issues become important for the voters also. And if I could draw a parallel, AAP's victory in MCD for me is also a byproduct of this. We clearly see in MCD the AAP vote among the poorer being much more than among the rich, and also doing well among the middle class, whereas the BJP's was reverse, doing extremely well among the affluent and doing poorly among the poor. So I think that pattern we are seeing both in the MCD elections and in the Himachal elections. And let me add this point, Nilanjan. We found in 2018, when we did the survey 1 year before the Lok Sabha elections, we actually found a sense of disquiet, or what we said at that point of time, do we see the first signs of anti-incumbency? That was the first time we had seen in 4 years the expression of dissatisfaction by the voter. And in our 2017 survey, we said, has anti-incumbency set in? Because that expression was very clearly there in the voter. And then next year, Fulmarma happened, Balakot happened, and
it completely changed the process.
Agenda changed. So I think if you look at the current stage, I think the daily livelihood questions, especially among the poorer sections of society, seem to dominate and dictate the choices that they make. And definitely, I think it should ring an alarm bell for the ruling party, and I'm sure it already has, because I've always believed that the ruling party takes 2 steps ahead of the situation it finds itself in, being constantly in election mode. So I'm sure this is an issue that is exercising their minds at the current moment.
But then what about Uttar Pradesh? If we step back, Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, where the BJP did so well, despite the fact that the memory of terrible mishandling of the second phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. How does one understand that? So at that point, anti-incumbency or dissatisfaction was not setting in. But it appears, by your argument, do you think that it is beginning to happen now?
Yes, but an added additional point.
Yes.
I think the political economy of Uttar Pradesh is very different from the political economy of Himachal Pradesh.
Right.
Himachal Pradesh has consistently ranked among the economically performing states. Himachal Pradesh has been high in terms of its economic record. And therefore, I think the impact of economic factors in that state have a much more telling impact on electoral results than in the case of Uttar Pradesh. Because in Uttar Pradesh, I think given the lower level intensity of economic development, that factor does not play out as much as other factors, because people for long have been used to a particular level and a particular style and a particular approach to economic development, that it does not necessarily. Now, though people may say unemployment, price rise, most important issues, but when they go to see that, when they watch that, when they go to the EVM and see that list, I think the whole issues that come up there changes. So I think it also has to do with the nature of political economy of those two states, besides the factor of proximity to the election. I think that's I would concede that point that you make.
Would you also add?
Also, Nilanjan, another point of comparison, and I don't know how much this is actually effective.
Yes.
In Himachal, though the BJP had a government in power, I don't think Mr. Jairam Thakur was projected as the chief ministerial candidate after the election. You see, they just said he's the current chief minister. So they had actually kept an open door policy on, if the BJP comes to power, who will be the chief minister. Even in the Congress ranks, there was no visible chief ministerial candidate in the fray. Sometimes I wonder today whether this makes a difference in an election, because when you don't have a face to lead you on in the election, then what happens is a set of local issues immediately become critical and become important. So I think in Himachal, I would say that factor was critical in turning the tide in favor of the Congress party.
So what you are saying is that even the Congress did not have a chief ministerial face, but the Congress campaign did not suffer much because it was not the incumbent. So as a result, because the incumbent didn't have a face besides Mr. Modi, that is why the local issues became more important. Let me ask you
Also,
one more.
Nilanjan, also on the Modi factor, let me make another point.
Yes, please.
Of course, there are colleagues who don't accept this argument, but I have felt that in the campaign, the Prime Minister, and maybe rightly so, focused much more on Gujarat than on Himachal. Because
Right.
winning Gujarat had greater political
Importance.
salience than winning Himachal. So, if you look at the campaign, I personally feel there was a lesser focus on Gujarat, on Himachal as compared to Gujarat. And though the Prime Minister did say, look at me and vote when he went to Himachal, I think the amount of time he spent in the state was less than what the BJP would have liked in that particular state.
Right. There's just one more question. We were talking about Uttar Pradesh. Comparing that with what we have seen in Himachal Pradesh, would you say that the presence of greater amount of Hindutva issues in Uttar Pradesh politics, the presence of a fairly large Muslim population in the state, also possibly helps the BJP to consolidate its Hindutva voter in its favor?
Um, in Gujarat, our study finds that across social groups, you have a strong consolidation of votes in favor of the BJP across caste groups.
Okay,
I think
yes.
all caste groups, including Dalits and tribals, the support base of the BJP has expanded.
That's right.
And the only group in which the support of the BJP has actually gone down compared to 2017 is the Muslim vote.
Right.
In 2017, the BJP saw a rise in the share of Muslim vote compared to 2012. But this time there is a decline in the Muslim vote, and this is the only vote that has declined for the BJP. And you see this vote consolidating with the BJP, with the Congress, and a small segment of it going to the AAP. So, yes, there was a consolidation of votes that the BJP was able to achieve in Himachal Pradesh, in Gujarat. In Himachal, I think you have a very, very insignificant minority vote.
That's
So
right.
that did not become an issue in the election. But in Gujarat, yes, you very much saw a consolidation across caste groups in favor of the BJP.
Now, using these elections to look ahead, two questions are there. One is that do you see the Aam Aadmi Party expanding into areas which are currently bipolar, which includes Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh? Second question is that how do you generally see the overall trend? Is it a settled issue as a large number of people are arguing who are supporters of the BJP that 2024 is now a settled matter?
2 points, Nilanjan. One, I'll take up the AAP question first.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the trajectory of AAP success, you will notice AAP has never been able to really register a strong presence in the very first election it has contested.
Right.
Now, in Punjab, it took them 2 elections to ultimately gain a majority.
Yes.
People said in the last election, not the one just held, but the one previous to that in Punjab, I mean, a lot of pollsters said that the AAP is going to win, which they did not. So, for AAP has found that it takes time to be able to work at the grassroots level to spread its wings within a state, and it has never really achieved success with the first election.
Okay.
That's why I mentioned a little while earlier in Gujarat, for me, the election to watch out for will be 2027 in terms of its presence. Now, I would make a similar point for Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Rajasthan. But I see a small difference in Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh because the BJP is, because the Congress is in power and the BJP is the challenger to the Congress. I do not see the political space for the AAP to actually emerge in both these contests. And in Madhya Pradesh, if you look at the last election, the Congress won that election, though subsequently the BJP came to power. So I would see a similar situation in Madhya Pradesh. So you may have the AAP trying to register its presence in these three states, but I don't see that presence in a sense resulting in any significant electoral gains in terms of seats. I still think it would be largely a bipolar contest in these three states. Now, coming to your second question, Nilanjan, about where does 2024 look from here? As of today, and this is my second insurance policy in your program, as of today, it looks to favor the BJP. But 16 months is a long time in politics.
Long time.
And in these 16 months, there could be several imponderables that could actually change the situation. But as of today, I think clearly, the BJP has an upper hand. Especially when it comes to a national election, because now we are making the separation between state level elections and national level elections. So state level elections are a totally different jigsaw puzzle, whereas a national election is very different, and there national issues, so-called national issues and national leadership can drive the...
Right.
If you remember last time, in all the seats that the NDA contested, every candidate said, this is not a vote for me, but this is a vote for making Mr. Modi the Prime Minister.
That's right.
And the Lokniti survey itself shows that 1/3 of those who voted for the BJP said they would not have voted for the BJP if Mr. Modi were not the Prime Minister candidate. So
I think you have really put it very well. And thank you, Professor Shastri. It's favoring the BJP yet, but lot can happen in the next few months, 1.5 years, 16 months. Thank you very much for coming and shedding light on a very important elections and the road ahead.
It's a pleasure to speak to Nilanjan, and we do hope that our tracking of politics and elections would keep us in touch and help us understand the pulse of the people in this country.
But now that I have your contacts, I'll be in more regular touch. And Bhopal happens to be one of my favorite cities to visit.
Do join us here. Do come here.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more interesting updates.